You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. Another day, another sort of a preseason list of accolades. Today, our friends over at On3 came out with their preseason All-America list for true freshmen. Preseason true freshman All-American list. So not red shirts, not transfers, guys who have yet to play a snap. They're taking a shot at guessing who the true freshman All-Americans will be. And they do list 2 LSU Tigers. So I thought this would be a really good opportunity for me to tell you what true freshman I think will have the biggest impact on this Tiger team. First, though, On3 list, this isn't a giant surprise, pun intended. Zalance Hurd, they do list as one of the true freshman All-Americans. Brian Kelly, back on National Signing Day, said this about Lance Hurd.
I like Zalance Hurd. I like his personality. He's extremely confident, believes in what he's doing and what he can do for this program. And then we put him through the ringer now, and we got eyes on him, and we watched him and watched him. We put him through the ringer, and he passed every test for us. So feel great about him being in the program. More on Hurd in just a quick second. The other preseason true freshman All-American from On3, and I disagree with this one wholeheartedly, is tight end Kamorian Pimpton.
Talent and a raw piece of clay.
Start over.
An unbelievable physical talent and a raw piece of clay that any tight end coach in America would love to have to work with. And he's got the ability at already gaining probably 15 pounds since he's been here and getting to 245 as a true freshman, an opportunity to help in both areas of what we ask our tight ends to do, provided he continues to develop, and I believe he will.
So that was LSU offensive coordinator Mike Denbrock talking about how raw he is, a raw piece of clay, and he'll be able to contribute if he continues to develop. That doesn't sound like a guy that is plug and play, ready-made to go be a preseason, to go be a true freshman All-American. But I like Pimpton a lot. We'll get more to more him in just a quick second. So I looked at this from On3, their preseason true freshman All-America list. I said, let me take a stab at which players on this LSU team I think are going to have the biggest impact as true freshmen. Hit it, Muse, if you will. So I identified 5 LSU Tigers that I think, true freshmen, that are going to have the biggest impact on this team. Number 1 is one of the guys that On3 mentioned, and I agree, it's Lance Hurd. He is physically ready to go. One of the things we've questioned is, when LSU has a guy go down, do they plug in the number 2 at that position, or do they just take their 6th best lineman, put him on the field, and shuffle things to get your 5 best available? And what we saw on Saturday in that scrimmage was Miles Frazier come off, Lance Hurd went on, ran with the ones at right tackle, and Emory Jones kicked into right guard. I think that is what you will see if the Tigers end up shuffling a bit. I'll remind you, it wasn't until week 3 a year ago that Emory Jones became a starter. He got his first start against Mississippi State. Extended playing time week 2 against Southern. He was starting week 3, never relinquished it. You could see something similar from Lance Hurd if that offensive line struggles early and they're trying to get Hurd in. Week 2 against Grambling, week 3 against Mississippi State. Could be a similar path, something worth keeping an eye on, but I would be fall over stunned if Lance Hurd didn't play a whole bunch this year for LSU. Number 2 on the list is a tight end, but it's not Kamorian Pimpton. And I'm not trying to be salacious here, but from the first day we went out to fall camp, you could just tell that Mac Markway is built differently. And when we got to talk to Mike Denbrock a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him about the tight ends, he gushed over one guy. Listen.
Mac Markway in particular has had the best camp so far as moving himself in a position to contribute to the team. Through a physicality standpoint, I think he's moving better in space. So there's some things that he can also give us in the passing game, which is welcome.
I'll remind you, Brian Kelly oftentimes has used 2 tight ends. In no better example during his time at Notre Dame than 2018. Alize Mack was his pass catcher. Saints ended up drafting him, by the way. And Cole Kmet was the more inline blocker. Remember, he was a two-way guy, also pitched for the baseball team. Alize Mack had 36 catches. Cole Kmet had 15. They used them both. I think this is a year where, look, Mason Taylor is your pass-catching tight end. He is that guy. So who's going to be the inline blocker? I think Connor Gilbreth, the JUCO transfer, is going to be one of them. But if you're looking at a freshman, the best candidate is Mac Markway, and I think he's going to have a bigger impact on this offense than most are talking about. It's easy to be infatuated with Kamorian Pimpton's size and wingspan, and he may be a great goal line target, but if you put Pimpton on the field, who do you take off the field? Malik Neighbors, Kyron Lacey, Brian Thomas? It's a tough call with how you get Pimpton in the field. It's easy to see a path for Markway because he plays a different style of tight end. One other pass catcher that I think will be on the field is true freshman Shelton Sampson. And no, this is not a Homer Catholic High take. The bottom line is Sampson was a 5-star wide receiver, and what we have seen out there in fall camp so far is when they run, you've got your first three that everybody knows. You've got Malik Neighbors, Kyron Lacey, Brian Thomas. When the next unit rolls out there, the first guy is Chris Hilton, and then it is Shelton Sampson. I'm putting a little asterisk next to Aaron Anderson because, yes, he's part of that as well, but he's going to affect the game in so many different ways. I'm talking about traditional wide, split wide receivers, like on the boundary. Brian Kelly, this is Mike Denbrock, talking about Shelton Sampson's camp.
Gifted as any wide receiver we've got on the roster. He's swimming in the deep end right now, like a lot of the younger kids are. But when he knows what to do, and he is incredible athleticism, great catch radius, can run a lot better than people give him credit for. And I'm hoping that that's just going to add to what we are if he can continue to come along.
I'll remind you, last year your fifth wide receiver, not pass catcher, wide receiver, number 5 wide receiver, was Kyron Lacey. 24 catches for 268 yards. I think Shelton Sampson could very easily replicate the type of season Lacey had a year ago for the Tigers this year as a true freshman, which is why I have him third on the list. Fourth, somebody has to step up in the defensive backfield. They just have to. Javian Toviano would be a really good choice, but it's pretty clear that Ashton Stamps has had the better fall camp. When LSU runs their second unit corners out there, one side is LaTerrence Welch, the other side is freshman Ashton Stamps. He was a 3-star. 24/7 Sports didn't have him in a national, wasn't in the top 1,000 nationally coming out of high school, but played at a perennial Plower and Rummel, a great program that's been a football factory that has churned dudes through this LSU program. It shouldn't be surprising that he was able to come and assimilate very well, and he got his body right. Also, Brian Kelly earlier in fall camp had this to say about the freshman corner.
Ashton's a true freshman who put on, a lot of weight. Many of you remember us recruiting him. He was a bit, I would say, underweight at the position for us. And we were excited about his competitiveness and his athleticism, but we challenged him to get after it in the weight room, and he certainly did in the offseason and then this summer, and he looks the part. He's doing a really good job as a true freshman.
Again, they need somebody to step up at cornerback after your first two guys. Also, what we've seen in fall camp is Ashton Stamps is on every single kick coverage unit. So he is going to make an impact in the secondary, but also in special teams. The fifth guy is a little bit of a wild card, and I have Whit Weeks on the list. Now, I know this coaching staff loves Whit Weeks. He's West Weeks' brother, yes, and it actually is pretty cool to see both Weeks brothers on the field with the second unit. So your starters are Harold Perkins and Omar Spates, and Greg Penn rotates in there as well, depending on if they're nickel or dime coverage. But when the twos went out there in that scrimmage on Saturday, it was West Weeks and Whit Weeks. Whit Weeks was here for the spring. If you remember, he had a pick 6 in that spring game in Tiger Stadium during the spring drills. So this is a guy they love. This is a guy who also is on every special teams unit. And there are going to be times, be it blowouts or otherwise, that Whit Weeks finds his way onto the field. Remember number 40, because that is a guy that is going to find a way to factor defensively and on special teams this year. Those are the 5 true freshmen I'm keeping an eye on, with honorable mention to Kamorian Pimpton, because I think he could make an impact in the red zone. Javian Toviano, who I mentioned as well, along with Ashton Stamps. I think Stamps has just had a better camp, but it wouldn't surprise me if Toviano did pop and be that guy. And the other honorable mention is the guy who you just can't ignore anymore after the day he had on Saturday, with Caleb Jackson having the 2 touchdowns in that scrimmage. By the way, look, Caleb Jackson looks like a linebacker playing running back. The one problem with Caleb Jackson is that he's one of 8 scholarship running backs. And when you look at that position, remember this weekend, you didn't have Josh Williams, Logan Diggs, or Amani Goodwin, 3 guys that I think are probably going to be the first 3 in that running back group. Jackson could end up affecting things significantly, but he's got a pretty steep hill to climb to get there. But he took a pretty significant step with that scrimmage on Saturday. Brian Kelly earlier in camp had this to say about the freshman from Liberty in Baton Rouge.
He's big, he's physical, he's strong, but he's raw. And so a lot of the work with Caleb is ball security, low pads, the nuances of the game, which, you know, when you have a physical, I don't want to use the word, but just a guy that has that kind of prowess at the position, those are good things to work on, right? We don't have to worry about some of the other things. So it's just the details with him.
People always want to know which freshmen are going to have the biggest impact. That's 5, with 3 sort of in parentheses as well, that I think could have a huge impact for LSU as true freshmen in 2023. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.